Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Travel Rolly podcast. Thanks for coming back to end Open Week. I hope everybody enjoyed the finishing of the Open this morning. We have a special guest, Clive Clark. We thought it'd be best to bring on Clive for part two since he actually played an Open at Hoy Lake back in 1967. He actually tied third behind Jack Nicklaus. Um, and he's actually played in 10 Open Championships in his golfing career. He's now a course designer. He helped and co-designed Dumbarton Links, which is one of our favorites. So everybody, please enjoy the podcast. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to the Travel Royally podcast. We're very excited today to have back with us again Mr. Clive Clark. He's had an amazing life in golf. And to give you some of the highlights, he started as an amateur playing in the Walker Cup in Baltimore in 1965, where he helped the team earn a tie 11-11. He had 3 points, and then he went on and he played 11 years of professional golf. He had 5 professional wins and 21 top 3 finishes. He played in 10 Open Championships and had 3 top 20 finishes, including 1967, where he tied for third with Gary Player behind Nicklaus and De Vicenzo at Hoy Lake, which is where the Open is this year. He finished 17th at St. Andrews in 1970 when Nicklaus won over Doug Sanders as he missed that 2-footer on 18. And he finished 11th in 72 at Muirfield, where if you recall, Trevino won by holing out from everywhere that year. And then he went on to play in the 73 Ryder Cup at Muirfield. And in the Friday four balls, he and Eddie Pollan from Ireland played Jack Nicklaus and Tom Weiskopf. He then went on to become the pro at the Venerable Club Sunningdale for 11 years. After that, for 18 years, he worked with the BBC on their golf broadcast, alongside legendary broadcasters Peter Allis and Henry Longhurst. And then he partnered with Peter Allis on a golf design business before moving here to the States in the 90s and formed his own company, Clive Clark Design. And over his career, he's designed more than 35 golf courses in the U.S. and Europe. Clive, welcome to the Travel Royally podcast.
Well, thank you. It's Jeff. It's very nice to be with you again, and I'm sitting in sunny California in La Quinta, and the sun is shining. It's starting to get a little bit warmer down here, a bit toasty, but we're still in the 90s. We're lucky. It's much better than being in the hundreds.
Well, here. Well, when I meet people from the UK, friends of mine, I say, hey, come over. They want to come over and play golf. I said, come in May or October because there's no humidity. The weather's in the 70s typically. Now that we're into June and early June, the humidity's rising. We're in the high 80s, and it's just not as much fun as playing golf when it's in the 70s.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's dive in. I've got some questions for you, some new questions. This is your third time with us. And before we went on, I was telling you about how much everyone enjoys playing there at Dumbarton. I should mention Dumbarton. I mean, it's such a wonderful course. I'm fortunate I'll be back in October to get to play. And invariably, Clive, what we're doing for our clients, and we've sent dozens of people to play there now, is they'll play Carnoustie and the old course and the new course and a couple of others. They typically play 5 or 6 times. And many of them come back and say, of all those courses I just mentioned, that Dumbarton is their favorite. So how does that make you feel? How rewarding is that to know that so many people come back with such strong feelings about the course you created just a couple of years ago?
Well, it's wonderful. It's fantastic. It's a course that is built for all the golfers. Everybody can enjoy playing Dumbarton. It's a thinking man's golf course, and it's got, I think, a lot of exciting holes, but they're fair, and there's a lot of risk and reward there as well. And I'm very pleased with the way it has gone since we started out. And I'm very thankful to our group of investors. There are 15 of us, and nearly all American, nearly all have homes in California in the winter. And they were buying into a vision, if you will. There was no golf course there.
Right.
I told my friends about it, and it's quite a stretch when you think here's the vision, but it's 5,000 miles away.
Right.
You can't look at it really because it was just a site, and it was a relatively flat site. It was on 2 levels with a slow flowing escarpment connecting them, but it's a gorgeous site right by the Firth of Forth. You look across to Edinburgh, to Muirfield, to North Berwick. But I'm so grateful for the investors who had faith in me, and that's very humbling to have people put large amounts of money as an investment into this project. And I guess it left me thinking, Clive, don't screw it up. That would be really bad. I spent a lot of time on the design, and I was over there for around 4 months while the course was being constructed, which is enormous help to a designer to actually be there when the machines are moving. You know, a lot of architects can only get back every 3 or 4 weeks, and things happen in 3 or 4 weeks that, you know, might need correcting. Sometimes it's just too late to correct them. They've gone past a point. So to be there on a daily, five day a week basis and work with the machinery is, in my terms, huge.
Yeah. Did you come across any change? Did you make any changes in that time where you, once you saw where the shapers had gone, you thought that's too severe or that's not severe enough, and you made a change in the field, so to speak?
Yeah, you do that. And in my case, they're not huge changes, but where you've got such a lot of dunes that we were creating.
Right.
You might find, for instance, the shaper has got kind of 3 in a row and they're the same height. So you've just got to knock them around a little more to make them look natural. It's not big changes, but it's tweaking.
Yeah.
And make sure all the bunkers turn out the way you want them. And we have 2 styles of bunker. We have what we call the natural bunker, which are big sweeping bunkers with tongues and fescue grasses growing to the top. And then we have the riveted or sodded bunkers, as they're known, which are the bunkers when you watch the Open Championship in Britain, all those courses on the rotor, that's what they have, the riveted faces. In fact, nobody will notice, but ours are actually not sod. They're artificial, and they're actually derived from old soccer pitches that had artificial turf on them. And they're cut out in a similar manner in oblongs, and they're stuck together with like a weak concrete base, and then the grasses start to grow into them in the cracks and things. And I defy anybody now, without practically having a magnifying glass, to go out there and say these are not real.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? You would say, why would you have artificial bunkers when you can have the real sod? Now, the trouble with real sod is it might last 2 years, it might last 7 years, and then you've got to redo them constantly.
Yeah.
The ones we used, the ones that are from the soccer pitch, are guaranteed for 20 years.
Wow.
And that's a huge difference, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's a huge, when you've got the number of bunkers that you have to redo 100 bunkers every 3 to 7 years would be terribly expensive. Yeah, I love that. Now, the other question I had around the design of the course, you obviously growing up and through your pro career, you played a lot of different links courses. Did you draw inspiration from any of those courses when you were thinking about the design of Dumbarnie?
Generally, I create myself as I go along, and it's a process. I start with my initial ideas on a golf course, and then I work it up, and they change on the drawing board, which is much much cheaper than doing it when you've got machines rolling and make
Right.
your mind up there, and that's expensive. So when I'm happy with the design and it goes through a process from the layout to the master plan to the grading plans, it's important to get those where you want them. Inspiration from other courses. For instance, our fourth hole, the second part of it, although it won't look like the third hole at Muirfield, the inspiration there was the third hole at Muirfield. It's a fairly generous drive, but then some 50 yards short of the green on either side, the sand dunes come in. So you get a little valley going through the middle.
Right.
So the fourth hole, although I say it will look nothing like, but the inspiration of how that worked, how it sort of cloaks and frames the green, I like that idea. And I like Muirfield. It's a lovely golf course. The other inspiration was our eighth hole, which is at Troon, the eighth hole, the postage stamp.
Yeah.
And there's an element of the postage stamp in that little hole, except the postage stamp, the real postage stamp at Troon, is the green is 9 to 10 yards wide. It's very, very narrow.
Right.
At Dumbarnie, we're just being a little more generous to the golfer. It's 15 to 16 yards wide.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit longer than the postage stamp. So for the average player on the middle tees, it's about 140 odd yards. So it's testing enough. It's
absolutely.
a little hole, and you've got to concentrate on hitting the green. You don't want to just dribble off the right edge and go down into those pot bunkers. And a couple of pot bunkers on the left. But it's also got a great background, like you're sitting there with Dumbarnie in the background.
Right.
It's virtually the view you get off the eighth hole. The hole you're sitting behind is the first par 3 you play, which is the sixth, which can be varied enormously in length from just over 100 yards to about 220 off our, what I call the professional tees.
Right.
If and when, and I hope soon we get a men's European event there. We've had the ladies. The second year we were open, which was the Scottish Ladies, that was terrific.
Yeah.
And it was televised around the world. Magic. But I've got 13 tees out there that the back tees for the golf course measure 6,950. The pro tees I put in, and there are 13 of them, takes it out to 7,600. So if the modern day John Daly's and DeChambeau's come and play, they've got plenty of yards, and I dare say a bit of breeze too to help them around the golf course.
Well, on the 6th hole, of course, there's a train going by now, my office. But at 220 yards into the wind, that's a heck of a shot that's required of you. Into the wind on this hole, that'd be a very difficult shot.
Oh, yes. But of course, you're talking about the best players in the world. Those tees are never opened for regular play. And in fact, most people find, even the pros, they often play a tee forward of the very back. If you get wind on a links and it's fast running, they're not necessarily easy. There are certain challenges on the golf course, but I think Dumbarnie Links is a very fair golf course, and in social media, that comes back a lot. We enjoy playing. There are certain challenges. There's a lot of options on there. Do I go down this fairway or that fairway? But it's an entertaining course for the golfer to play, and that's what I like about it. It makes the golfer think: should I do this or should I do that?
Right.
Do I play for the pin, or maybe I'll play for the center of the green? There's option after option after option, and 3, which is very rare to find on a golf course. There are 3 drivable if the person can hit it far enough, the wind's the right way. There are 3 drivable par 4s, but you've got to take a choice. You go for the green, you're going all over the rubbish and hazards. Right. Otherwise, you play safe down the fairway, and then you've probably got a wedge onto the green. So, you choose your own poison. You pay your money, you take your choice.
Right. Well, the thing that stands out to me about Dumbarnie is what I would call balance and flow. The flow of the holes, I think, is excellent. And
Thank
I
you.
don't know how you achieve that, but from hole to hole, the mix is just perfect from par three to par five to par four to par three. It's just brilliant. And the balance of holes, I think, is good. Risk reward, drivable par fours, short par threes, long par threes. And as you said, it's a thinking person's golf course. So having said all that, how did you go about creating that, what I call balance and flow to Dumbarton? Because I think it's the only course I've played it twice. And I think about it a lot, but it's the one course I think about that's ideally laid out. And part of that, Clive, when I think about other courses, they may have a stretch of 7 par fours in a row, let's say. And it's because in the 1800s, when it was built, that's what the land allowed. They didn't have earth moving equipment. So it kind of is what it is. But you had the ability to really shape the course in the way that you want. I'm curious how you went about that.
Well, one advantage straight away we had is 345 acres just to do pure golf, no houses. I mean, you only see the odd house way in the distance. So it is pure core golf, which is terrific. And it has that wonderful backdrop of the Firth of Forth. So as I mentioned, you can see across to Edinburgh and Muirfield and North Berwick. And the other thing that is a little different, I think, about this golf course, because we've been able to create a lot of dunes around the golf course. When you leave the green, you don't know what's around the next corner. So you go to the next tee,
right,
but you can't see it from the green. So you go through some dunes and now you suddenly arrive and the next hole bursts in front of you. And the way I designed, there are never two holes that look similar on the golf course, but they amalgamate to go together.
Right.
That, if you will, in sympathy with one another. They're part of a package of golf holes, but equally they have different features, different setups, different bunkering, in order to make the golf course much more interesting. I mean, there's nothing worse than, hey, we go this way up that hole, then we come parallel back down again, and we've played the same hole virtually again. Right. You will see none of that at Dumbarton. Each right. hole is effectively a custom built golf hole.
Right. Well, you brought up something that I tell everyone that they need to be prepared for when they play, and that is, from the first tee, you can see out across the course and you can see some of the hills, but even then, or holes, I should say, but the dunes that have been created block your view. Once you get down to the first green, or actually halfway down the first hole, you realize that you can't see any more of the course. And every time you turn the corner, as you say, the golf course opens up to the next hole, and it's I think I may have said this before to you. It's the first time I've ever played a course where 18 times you catch yourself going, wow. Every time you turn that corner, like, wow. But one of the comments we get when people come back is this idea of how much they love it and the risk and reward nature of the course. There's a hole, I want to say it's on the front 9. I'm trying to remember the number, but and the 2 times I played it, I went left once and I had like an 8-iron or a 9-iron. And the other time I went right and I had a 5-wood. That was a safer place, but it seems like you've created these, the dangerous shortcut or the generous safety area. And, can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, you're talking about the 5th hole.
That's it. Yeah.
As you rightly say, there's 2 ways of playing it. You can go out, and it's a hole of around, depending which tee you're playing off, let's say around 400 plus yards. Now, if you take the line straight to the green, you've got a narrow fairway. It's 25 yards wide, But there's treble on both sides. There's sand dunes on the left, and there's a huge cluster of bunkers in the middle. So you have to thread it between those two, what in fact are issues. I mean, you can stand on that tee and you think, yeah, I'll go the shortcut, and then you find your buttocks just pinching a little bit. And, well, maybe I won't do that. Maybe I'll go down the right-hand fairway, and you're hitting into half of Fife when you go down that side. But the first time I played it, you're absolutely right. I played 2 balls, and the one down direct at the green, I happened to hit a good drive, and I hit a 9-iron onto the green. Going down the very safe line, I hit exactly the same drive down the middle of the fairway, but the right half, and I was playing a 4-iron to the green.
Wow.
So there's probably 50 odd yards difference between going this way and that way. So it's a gambler's hole. You've got to decide what you're going to do and then commit.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. 17, you've got a similar choice, right? I mean, you can go left of the wall and it's fairly innocuous. On the right, there's nothing. If you don't hit the green, there's nothing but danger. It's like stair step bunkers on the way up to the hole. You've got to hit almost not a perfect shot, but you've got to hit a very good drive there to get to the green.
You have, and that's the last of the 3 short par 4s that are drivable, and the others come at the 3rd, the 11th, and the 17th. And a lot of people really like that 17th hole because it plays with your mind. And now, do I go over the 300-year wall right at the green straight? But there's also 9 riveted pot bunkers down there scattered about. So you better be very accurate. And it's a sort of hole you can make 3 easily. You can drive the green if you're long enough. But it's also a hole where you can take a 6 or a 7 very quickly because you get stuck in these bunkers. You can't get very far out of them, let's put it that way. Or you can go left of the wall, and for even a decent player, it's probably a drive and a 9-iron or even an 8-iron sometimes. And the hole plays down prevailing breeze. So it's really tempting, but it really gets people thinking. And that's part of the fun of golf. If it was just any course that's kind of just straightforward, bunker left, bunker right, up to the green, bunker left, bunker right, flat approach, nothing happening, you get repetition. And you don't want repetition. You want to keep the golfer's mind engaged.
Right. Well, I think the other thing is that you've got a wonderful match play course. Imagine coming to that hole, and you're 1 up. Right, in your match, and you come to 17, that forces a very tough decision for that player, right?
Well, if you're 1 down and you're long enough, you're going to have a go at that green.
Yeah.
In fact, in the Scottish Women's Open, Lydia Ko knocked it to 6 feet from the pin and hold the putt for 2, and she finished second. She shot from memory, I think, a 63 the last day.
Wow.
And I said, I didn't make this course tougher with the ladies shooting 63s. I mean, they're ripping it apart. But it was a nice still day for the last day. And of course, Lydia Ko is a great player.
Is that the course record for women now?
Oh, yes. I don't think that'll be seen in a long time, I'd say. You could put your bank on that one. That's a great round of golf.
Yeah. Well, you raise a good question there. Now, I know that you've had more than 50,000 rounds played. You've gotten a ton of feedback. You've watched a women's professional event. Are there any holes that you'd like to go back and adjust, or do you have plans to it? And I say adjust, tweak to make them easier or harder, or no?
Yeah. I'm looking at the possibility, and I'll be going back over there soon. And one of the holes I'm looking at is the drivable par 4, the 3rd hole. And to the right of the green and just short, there are 2 little pot bunkers. But if you're playing down the fairway and have let's say a wedge to the green, they really won't come into play that much. And so what I'm planning to do is extend the left-hand bunker of the two a little further left. So it will give us a front right pin, which now you've got to think again. And just for that one pin placement, it won't affect the other pin placements a great deal, but that's your sort of Sunday pin, if you will.
Yeah.
Or for the club golfer, when it's on that front right-hand corner. Now, do I go over the bunker and can I stop the ball? Because it's not hard against the green. You've got a bit of apron between.
Right.
Or do I play for the centre of the green and accept a nice par? Bless you. And I might hold a long putt for a birdie. So again, it's that thinking man's golf, which I certainly enjoy as now an old golfer. But that's what I like, to have to figure things out, keep the mind moving on the golf course.
Yeah, I love that about Dumbarton. One of the things that we get a lot of comments on when people come back is the welcome. You've got a wonderful clubhouse, great pro shop, very nice restaurant, beautiful scenic outdoor seating. When people come to the first tee, they're given a kind of a velvet bag with some goodies in it. They get a wee whiskey, some putting oil before they tee off, and they all universally like that. How are your guests feeling about the overall experience there at Dumbarton?
Well, we're getting fantastic feedback on social media. David Scott, our general manager there, who has lived in St Andrews for many years and is a great guy and does a fantastic job. And he has selected a team, his head people there, and then down through the whole team, even to the guy who's washing dishes in the back room. They're all terrific people. There's nobody I would want to swap out. And we have the best part of 60 odd people working for us, which is good for the local community.
Right.
And David really organizes things so well. And he's very visible because he's about 6'5", so you can't miss him. But the service, the overall picture of everything, the welcome when you arrive, there are two very friendly gentlemen who show people around, and here's the locker room, and here's this, and here's that. So again, I come back to my vision in the first place was we are having a high-end daily fee golf course, but the visitor will get the feel that he's a member of a high-end golf course for a day.
Right.
And some of them come back quite a lot, so it may be 2 days, hopefully.
Yeah. Last week, I had some guests over, and they had a day off on Wednesday, and we weren't able to get them into the Old Course ballot. So on Thursday night, over there, well, late Thursday afternoon, they asked me if I could get them on anywhere. So I called Leah Janetta, who does your reservations over there. She's wonderful. She got them a very nice tee time. There weren't a lot of tee times available that day, obviously, because you're into May, but she was able to accommodate us, and they absolutely loved it. One of the questions I've got, there are not many new links courses in Scotland. Yours is the newest, but Trump built his course a while back, and Cabot Highlands, which was Castle Stewart, was built probably, I'm guessing 15 years ago now. But Trump and Cabot Highlands are building a second course. Has anything changed about the opportunity that you might have to build a second course at Dumbarton?
Well, we have an option on the land, which is adjacent and part of the same Balcarres estate, to do a second golf course. We will be looking at this year's performance and see how it goes. So I think, yes, eventually there will be a second golf course there. The timing, we just want to explore how things are going this year and then we can start to make a decision whether we go for permitting. Really, all you need to be a developer of a golf course, it sounds so simple when you think about it. Well, you need to own or have rights to the land. You need to get the permit from the local authorities, and you need the money. Just three things. It should happen
Is that all?
in half a day.
That's
it
all.
Doesn't. Most developments take a long time to satisfy the equation of three.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one other thing I would do if I were you. And you can split the profits on this with me, because I know you're going to like this idea. A high-end hotel would be nice down there as well. St. Andrews is short. Someone told me 2,000 rooms annually. They could use an additional 2,000 rooms, and you could serve that whole area out of Dumbarton. But you heard it here first, Clive. Don't cheat me out of what you owe me on that.
Well, being a hotel manager is a very difficult job, and I've awarded it to you. How's that?
Okay, you can use the idea for free. I've got one last question before we move on to talk about the Open. And I wonder what your dear departed friends, Peter Alliss and Henry Longhurst, would say if they played a round of golf on Dumbarton. What do you think they'd say?
Well, of course, Peter I worked with for 18 years in the commentary box, although most of my life with BBC was out on the course like Bob Rosberg, calling shots from the golf course, doing the interviews. And Peter and I, before I moved to the States, for quite a few years, had a design company together in Britain, and we did a lot of golf courses. Peter, who was a very fine player, remember, he played in 8 Ryder Cup teams, beautiful strike of the golf ball. Peter would have enjoyed the golf course because it's a striker's golf course at professional level, and he was a really good striker of a golf ball. The one thing I learned, if you will, in the early days from teaming up with Peter to be in golf course design back in Europe, Peter used to say, he used to call me often young Sprogling, because Peter was about 13 years older than me. He'd say, I've never heard anybody come in from a golf course and say I had a great day when the rough was this high and they lost 6 golf balls and the greens were all over the place and they were 3 and 4 putting every other green. He said, I've never heard anybody come and say, oh, I had a great day out there. That's always struck in my mind. Don't make the golf course unfair. Right. People don't like looking for golf balls, losing golf balls, 3 and 4 putting all over the case. So I think, bless him, Peter, I miss him madly, because he was a great, apart from being, in my opinion, the best golf commentator that golf has seen. I think he's terrific. Absolutely. Because he added so much light to the commentary. It was interesting, it was entertaining, it was amusing. And he had a great voice, great timing, great charm, and great knowledge. So what could be better? Hard to beat.
Well, was he as good a golfer as his father was?
They both played Ryder Cup. Peter played in more Ryder Cup teams. I think Peter was the better player. I never met his father because it was out of my generation. But
and Henry Longhurst, after he made fun of your tie, I'm assuming he would go out and play. And
yes, I was at a cocktail party one night, but he had a very dry wit. And I'd come back from America and I bought some beautiful jackets and matched it up with a really nice tie. And I'm dressed up at this cocktail party, and up comes Longhurst, very dry. My dear boy, is that your old school tie, or just your own unfortunate choice? Now, Henry, you see, no bones about it. And I was very fortunate, because my first 2 years out of the 18 with BBC was working with Peter Alliss and Henry Longhurst. You can't do much better than that. Right. And they both had different styles of commentary. And Henry was economy of words generally. You know, when I hold in one at the Masters on the 16th, he was commentating, and I saw the tape afterwards. Well, it's young Clive Clark playing the 16th into the breeze. I dare say a long iron. Nothing. I eventually hit the ball, and the pin's way back right, and it rolls up the slope, takes the curve, goes straight in the hole, and the gallery on the left go crazy on the left of the lake there on 16. They were practically doing belly flops into the lake.
Yeah.
And Henry just let all the noise die to a stony silence. And all he said was, and there you have it. That was it. But Henry, I don't say this disrespectfully, but he was known for his drinking. That was one of his pleasures in life. And he did have a rather red nose, which looked a little bit pickled. he was absolutely wonderful because he was from a different era, so to speak, but
right.
Wonderful writer. He was a politician at one stage.
Yeah.
And his commentary, he came over and worked for ABC for a while, but he was a sort of staunch BBC man. I think Henry, had he been with me at Dumbarnie when it was done, we would walk to the first tee and he would sort of quietly observe, and he would have turned around to me and said, "My dear boy, splendid. Now let's go in the clubhouse and have a few gin and tonics."
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, you know, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on, Clive, was that we're coming up to Hoylake. The Open Championship will be there, and next month in July, or this will be airing in July, so it'll be. We want to play this around right before the Open to get people excited about the Open. And so 56 years ago, I know it seems like yesterday probably to you, but it was 56 years ago. You finished in a tie for third there. You were paired with Jack Nicklaus in the final round. You finished behind De Vicenzo and Nicklaus and tied with Gary Player. But then you had a T17 at St. Andrews and a T11 at Muirfield. Why do you believe you played so well on these historic, difficult links courses?
Pure inspiration. I like playing links golf, but just to arrive at the Open, it was prepared in a different manner to the regular tour events that you played. So they let the fescue rough, which is what goes with links golf, grow. So it's what happens. It makes it a tougher test of golf, obviously. But fescue, as you know, is it's tall, but not as thick as pattern golf.
Right.
When you arrive and look at the golf course, you suddenly see enormous definition between the fairway and the rough. It just sort of stands out and hits you. And the other reason for me, I was inspired by the look, and I was inspired by the fact that certainly in those days, your opportunity to see players of the ilk of Nicholas Palmer, Player, Trevino, didn't exist other than the Open. That's the only time you would ever get a chance to play a practice round or have a draw or do well and have to be drawn with one of the best top 10 players in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that was inspiring. But not only that, in a strange way, it takes the pressure off because nobody's actually expecting you to be the number one and number two player, number three player in the world.
Yeah.
You can go out there and the galleries are huge compared to a regular event. And being a Brit, you know, you hit a wonderful iron shot into the green to a few feet. The crowd go crazy. This is inspiring.
Yeah.
You know, you look and you think, gosh, you know, hey, they're applauding little me. And now you feel 10 foot tall.
Yeah.
So for all those reasons, the Open I found a very inspiring event, and playing with Nicklaus in the last round, I'd played with him a couple of times before. He, great gentleman, I remember I had an awkward putt for a 6 on the first hole. I unfortunately hit a 2-iron my second shot, and it flipped just off the ridge, just at the side of the green, out of bounds. So I'm left with a 5-footer. He's holed out. Everybody's charging to the next tee now. They want to see Jack hit a drive. And he held his hands up like this, and in a loud voice, he turned to the gallery and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, my partner still has to putt out. Please, could you just stand still? Thank you."
Yeah.
What a great sportsman.
Yeah.
How many people, great champions, would do that? I thought that was very good. And, Jack is a great guy. He's always done the right thing in life.
Well, I want to congratulate you on Dumbarton too. You don't have any out of bounds inside the course. Like that's just crazy. I mean, when you think about that, that's the first hole has out of bounds on it, and it's not like it's onto private property. I think it's the driving range, isn't it?
Well, yes, in those days,
Yeah.
because the first hole eventually they changed ground, and latterly, I think when Rory won and Tiger won, you teed off the 17th as the first hole.
Oh, true.
Played the 18th as the second hole, and then went back to the third hole for the Open, which was actually the members' first tee.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think this year they're changing it around a bit because they've created a new par 3. I think it's round about, I think they're now playing it as 17. I haven't been there for a long time, but I think it replaces the old, I think it was the 14th was a par 3. So it kind of plays that hole in reverse, I think is the way it works. I haven't seen a layout for it yet. But
you know what, Clive? You are not the only person we've had on this podcast who played in the final round of a British Open with Jack Nicklaus.
Oh, right.
So we had, I hope you've heard of this person. This is a guy who played in 1991 in the Open Championship, and he won low amateur. He won the silver medal. He went on to win twice on the European Tour. He's now the head professional at Southport and Ainsdale. His name's Jim Payne. Jim Payne.
Oh, I know the name. I've never met the gentleman.
Yeah, so he had very similar stories, right? Like Jack was a gentleman, and he had other stories about Jack from other times. But anyway, I found that interesting. When I heard that he had played in the final round, it was the final round, but not the final grouping like you were. So here's a question for you. You know, when you played that first time in 1967, well, it wasn't your first Open, but when you played in 67, you were a 22-year-old kid. Does your mind take you back to that time now as you're thinking about there are other 22-year-old kids that are teeing it up at Hoylake, either as an amateur or their first time as a pro? Does your mind go back to what that felt like?
Well, yeah. Just a quick interjection, though. When I played in the Walker Cup, I just turned 20, and my buddy Peter Townsend was 19, and we were the young whippersnappers in the team. I think there was only one other person I remember was under 30, and the rest of our team were all in their 30s. Sir Michael Benallet, Michael Lunt, that group, who were very fine amateur players. Now, the American team, imagine this happening today. Trust me, it's not going to happen. The American team in the Walker Cup, which was 1965 in Baltimore, had half their team, 5 of them, were 40 and over. Today, if you're 23, you're the old man in the team.
Yeah, that's true.
Changed. I think so. People are not turning pro young today. It's a totally different game.
But at the time, what did you think of Hoylake as a golf course?
Sorry?
At the time, in 1967, what did you think of the golf course?
Well, it's a very good links golf course. I mean, the rota of generally 9 courses, but it goes to the course at St Andrews every 5th year, are quite comparable in many ways. It is the same type of links golf course. The preparation of the golf course, which certainly in the old days used to be down to the weather, because in Britain, I'm talking mid-60s, 70s going backwards, there was no fairway irrigation.
Right.
So mercy. And I remember when Tiger won, the course was straw when he won
Exactly.
at Point or Royal Liverpool, as it's often referred to. And Tiger hit a driver in 72 holes once at the 15th, and he missed the fairway with it. And he's generally playing long irons, occasionally a 3-wood, and he won the Open. Rory played great in, I think it was 2014. He won.
Yeah.
So it's a fine golf course. Again, you're dependent on the wind. You know, what's the score going to be? Well, what's the weather going to do is the first question you would ask. I mean, if it's very windy, 71 might be a good score.
Right.
If it's pan flat, people will probably get round in 65, maybe 64.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's funny, Clive, a while back, well, I don't say a while back, a couple of weeks ago, we had a gentleman on the podcast who was the head greenskeeper at Hoy Lake when Tiger played, as you mentioned, and you said it was straw. He said that in the U.S. on a golf course, the moisture level of a green is 17% or 20, in that 17 to 20% range. And on links courses at the time, it was 3 to 3.5% moisture. That year at the Open at Hoy Lake, it was 1%. He said they were barely alive, the greens, literally barely alive. So going into that 67 Open, how was your form of play at the time? Did you think, hey, I've got a chance to win, or I'm going to have a very, very good finish, or what was your feeling at the time?
Well, I was playing very well that year. I finished second in our PGA championship. At the end of the year, I finished third in the money list in Europe that year. I'd had a lot of good tournaments, so I was confident. In fact, I played both practice rounds with Gary Player, which was terrific, and we just actually played a score. Often in practice rounds now, you just knock a ball around and have another shot and you don't score. But I had both days 67, which was pretty hot around Hoy Lake. Yeah. So I go in there with confidence, and I played the same way until the last round. And I think I got, playing with Jack, I got taken out of my rhythm. He hit the ball so far and so ferociously that you feel a bit like a pea shooter going off against a cannon. And I think I just got too quick with my rhythm. And I started 6.55 and I shot 72 on a breezy day, which was a great comeback. But how I did it was, I was really playing rubbish for the first 14 holes, terrible through the green. And I felt like I chipped and putted every green to make a par. And then the penny dropped. He's taken you out of your rhythm. So it sounds strange, because normally when you play with the number one player in the world, whether it's tennis or golf or soccer, whatever, you're watching what they're doing because you're learning at the same time. I, however, figured it out. With 5 holes to play, I turned my back. I didn't watch him hit a shot. And I just said, slow down. And I finished with 3 birdies in the last 5 holes, 3 under par for the last 5, to shoot the 72 and tie with Gary Player for third.
Yeah, well, I think it's a remarkable round. I know it's one that you're proud of. You were 4 under on the last 14 holes, right? I mean, you started out 4 over and then finish even par.
That's 5 in there. But you can reach it so effectively. It felt 4 over par after 3 holes. I mean, what a terrible start in the last round. You know, sport is unpredictable.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, you finished at 4 under, I think De Vicenzo finished at 8 under. That's a
Yeah.
tall order for a 22-year-old kid to go out and shoot 68 on the final day of the Open.
Yeah,
when compared with Jack Nicklaus. I mean,
it might have been that if I'd played with maybe Gary Player, for instance, in the last round, we hit the ball about the same distance, so I would not have been taken out of my rhythm, which wasn't his fault. It was my fault.
Right.
But and you mentioned Roberto De Vicenzo, who would have been 100 this year. I think he made about 91. And he was the most charming. He's one of the nicest pros you would ever meet. He was absolutely charming, very friendly to everybody, magnificent swinger and striker of the golf ball. His putting probably wasn't quite in the class of the top 3 players in the world.
Yeah.
But he won a lot of tournaments, and it's great to watch on the practice ground. Roberto, wonderful rhythm and swing and simple and up and down.
Well, it's a shame what happened to him at the Masters back in the late 60s as well, right? I mean,
yeah, signed one card, didn't he? 17 was it? He had a 3 and he signed for a 4. He got into a tie with Bob Golby and lost the playoff. He should have won.
Yeah, he certainly played well enough to win that day.
Yeah.
So you were 4 under that for that week. How do you think you think -4 will hold up this year in the Open? You think -4
would have caused 10 gale for 4 days. I think the weather long range is quite good, so it wouldn't surprise me if something like 12, 13, 14, maybe 11, somewhere in that sort of range, dependent on the weather and to some degree dependent on how they prepared the golf course. Yeah. You see, the big thing in scoring, particularly with pros nowadays, some courses, they prepare it and the ball releases. Now, you'll see that on the TPC in Florida. Yeah. Which is a great tournament. But usually they keep those greens firm, which is, to me, much more interesting. Where you have a situation, particularly on links, I personally don't like to see what I call plop golf. In other words, the ball goes, that's it, plop, with a great big pitch mark. Well, that's when, of course, the pros can score very well in that situation. Yeah. When the ball is rolling, now you might even hit a really good shot and come up just on the edge of the green. Sure, you might hit a good shot and go through. So it's a little more chancy, but it certainly demands patience in order to produce a good score, because you're not always going to be treated fairly. Yeah, and that's part of links golf. Yeah, that's part of the challenge.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, it was 56 years ago. You were at the Open. As we said, you were 22 years old. What do you remember about the week? Are there any funny stories or things you reminisce about when you think back to that week 56 years ago?
Well, I think largely playing with Jack Nicklaus was a highlight on the last round. Of course, the prize money was not exceptional in those days as it is today. 1967, tying with Gary Player for third, I won in pounds 1,150 pounds, which might, I can't remember the conversion to dollars, but it's probably a couple of $1,000 or so, which you could just about buy a Jaguar for in those days. The lower range of a Jaguar, that would nearly pay for it. To put it back in perspective with inflation and things, to me though, it was what it did for me to finish third, and the recognition I got. It elevated my situation in professional golf, and I was under the management of Mark McCormack in those days.
Wow.
The following week, not the following week, but he announced the following week, Clive, we're going to put you into a televised tournament, 1 round of golf, America versus the world. And so I was representing the rest of the world. and I played against Dick Sykes at Hoylake, which was nice for me because I knew the golf course. So that was like 3 weeks after the Open, and I beat him by a couple of shots, and my check was $4,000 for one round of golf, which I thought I'd won the pools.
So you won more for that than you did for the Open, or finishing third in the Open.
Yeah, double or more for one round of golf.
Well, I know that last year at the Open, Rory finished third, and he made 750,000 pounds. That's a tad more than 1,150 pounds like you did. And not only, obviously, it's 600 times more or close to that, right? But it's he could buy 10 Jaguars with that money versus almost one with the money that you won.
Yeah, and the whole fleet, I think. He could have bought Jaguar.
So let me ask that. When you think about that, what money's done to the game, and obviously earlier this week we heard about what everybody's talking about. If you walk into your golf club today, that's going to be the topic of discussion. The PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, and PIF or Live Golf, whatever you want to call that. What do you make of that? And do you think that's good for the game of golf?
It's going to take a bit of figuring out, isn't it? I mean, it came so suddenly, and seemingly they kept it into such a small circle of people who were making these decisions. I read this morning, it might not be true, but Greg Norman didn't even know it was happening.
Yeah.
As well as all the players. And I can appreciate why they did it, because as soon as it becomes a big group, it's no longer confidential.
Right.
They managed to keep it so much together with so few people involved, all the top people, but so few, it didn't get out. Maybe it did get out. Maybe they made the announcement sooner than they wished, because there was the meeting with the commissioner and the players, and a lot of the players, obviously, who stayed with the PGA Tour are not too happy that, hey, these guys have raided the bank, they've got gold nuggets falling out of their pockets, and now they're coming back. And we were the good guys, and we stayed on the tour. But look at them and look at us. That's bound to happen. I don't know how they'll sort it all out. It may well be good for the game that they all get together. There's the other possibility that the lawsuits were going to cost so much money and drag on, and aggravation and animosity. We'll just see how it plays out. But it was a big shock for all.
Yeah. Well, I think to say that Jay Monahan came off as hypocritical would be the understatement of the year. But, from my perspective as a tour, the Live Golf Tour, and I say this without any animosity or malice intended, it was a colossal failure. They couldn't get a decent TV contract. The team thing just never went over. The most innovative thing that worked, I guess, was guys wearing short pants during the tournament. I mean, it was an invitational. They only had 48 people in the field. It feels like the PGA Tour had all the cards and folded, right? I don't know. It's mind-boggling what happened. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. I don't even know what to say.
No, I don't think anybody does. There's so many moving parts in there that have not been established. So, had they actually been able to move on a few weeks more and kind of what's happening with the existing tour players? Is there going to be some money allocated to them because they missed out? I mean, there's all sorts of questions that are not answered, and they will be answered over the next period of time. But That one really came out of left field, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think both sides were hypocritical, right? So the live players right now are happy because they're back, they can come back to the PGA Tour. But I thought they wanted to play less golf. I thought they wanted to spend more time at home. And then you've got the obvious hypocrisy of Jay Monahan. But the thing that's, I think, unsettling for most middle class people is that this whole thing is based on greed, right? The game's not better for any of this, right? The only people that are making more money are the golfers. You could argue that the tour is making more money, but the players are making substantially more money. And, you know, it's just, it's turning me away from professional golf other than the majors, right? Where I would get to see everybody, all the best players play anyway. But to watch a bunch of people whining because, I mean, last week, the winner of that tournament won $3.6 million. Second place was $2.2 million. I mean,
significant money, isn't it? For a week's work.
For most Americans, it's life-changing. If you gave a middle-class American 3.6 million or even 2.2 million, their life is forever different.
Yep.
And you've got people complaining about how they're being paid. Anyway, well, I didn't want to drag you into that. I just wanted to.
Well, it's fascinating. Everybody will be talking about it, and it will be of great interest to see how it develops going forward. But there's so many moving parts and so many different opinions. Whatever happens, one thing for sure, it's not everybody's going to be happy.
Right. I've got two more questions for you. This one is kind of impromptu, and that is, who do you like in this year's Open? I mean, you know Hoylake very well. Who do you like in the Open this year?
It's time for Rory to win another major. He's won 4. He's due another. It's been a long, long time, and he's a wonderful player. I think I don't personally know him because I've lived over in the States now for nearly 30 years. Right. But I like his attitude. I think he's a wonderful guy, apart from being a great player, and he's an explosive player. I think he has a very good chance. Some of the Americans are playing very well, depending whether they like the conditions. Because generally, if it's like it was when Tiger won, that's not the sort of conditions that they're used to playing in. Right. Hard and firm and crusty and straw-colored fairways. I'd like to see, that's it. I'd like to see Rory win. I just think he's such a good player, and he's due a win, another major.
Yeah, I think that'd be a very popular choice, particularly in light of the fact of what's happened earlier this week and how he stood up for golf in the PGA Tour. I think it'd be a nice win.
He's won there. He knows the golf course.
Yeah, true. Okay, I'm going to sneak another question in. You said something a moment ago that made me think of this. Who of today's players remind you of them? In other words, is there a player that plays the game very similar to the way that you did? Like when you see him, you go, boy, he plays it like I did.
I think really the game has changed so much. When I was playing way back for 10 years on the tour, the ball was very different. The drivers were incredibly different. I mean, I haven't hit a steel shafted persimmon head. I should just go out and hit one and see how it feels, but it's, by comparison, it's awful compared to today's equipment. And you've also got to take into consideration the maintenance, particularly of the greens. And bear in mind, going back, everybody, including the caddies, wore metal studs. So if you were in the last few games, the greens were fairly chewed up with the studs, and not many people wear them today. So there's a big difference, and the length. I just am amazed the length people hit the golf ball today. It's staggering that there are people out there who can hit it in the air 310, 320.
Yeah.
I'm gobsmacked by that. And, I go back to, I played 5 times with Jack Nicklaus when he was at the height of his game. And if you ask me how far he hit it after it finished rolling, I would say 280, maybe 290. And today they're carrying over 300.
Yeah.
It's a different game. Maybe they're much fitter as well. I mean, other than Gary Player and 1 or 2 other top pros, there were not a lot of people doing heavy physical exercise to build themselves up.
Yeah.
Gary Player, incidentally, and Bob Charles, who were both 87, came out to Dumbarnie last year, and I had breakfast with Gary, and he's just bursting with energy. And I went out, he had a group of 4, but I went out to the range and watched him hit. He hit the ball beautifully. I mean, solid and straight with the driver, 87 years of age. And Bob Charles, I played a round of golf with Bob last July on Dumbarnie, and he still looks like Bob Charles, 87 years of age, still plays beautifully, put him off the members' tee. He'll shoot par at 87. Swings the same.
He always had such a long language swing, right? It was a beautiful golf swing.
Yeah, it's a little bit shorter, but hey, 87, you can still, reasonably get it for that age. I mean, Bob would hit it probably 230-ish, maybe 240 at 87. How good is that?
Well, there's a guy in my golf group. He's 85, and he can drive the ball, I would say 220, 230 if he gets one. And I asked him not long ago, I said, how many times have you shot your age? And he said, I don't know.
Lost count.
Yeah, I said, more than 50? He said, yeah. I said, more than 100? Yeah. And I said, more than 200? He goes, about 200. Right. This is an 85-year-old guy who plays once a week.
Yeah, amazing.
And I'll tell you what, he hits the ball like he's 65. Hits the ball like he's 55, looks like he's 65. And, I swear to God, if you saw him, Clive, there's no way that guy's 85 years old. Now, he rides a cart. He doesn't walk like some of us, but anyway. Well, Clive, what's next for you? Is there anything you have plans for, any new developments, or?
I'm talking to a couple of developers, and we'll see how that develops, which would be nice. But I'm, still very involved in Dumbarnie and the organization side. And as I said, we have a very good GM over there and a great team of people. So David Scott's doing a lovely job. And people are just enjoying being there. They're enjoying the golf course, but they're enjoying the fact that the staff are very friendly, look after them very well. There's nothing really you wouldn't like about the place. Everything is going great.
Well, this is something, as a tour operator, these things that you've done, and some of them may seem innocuous, like the whiskey on the first tee, or the little bags that you give away, or the 2 gentlemen at the front who help you get your clubs out of the car, or whatever. But it makes a big difference, and it gives me confidence as a tour operator that when I send people there, I know that they're going to be made to feel welcome, And that's important. You want these people to feel at home. And your comment that you want them to feel like they've joined a private club for a day, but then the golf course is so fair, right? I mean, it can be
It's wide enough.
yeah. I'm telling you, every time someone doesn't get on the old course, I literally call Leah. She'll help me get guys on, and I mean, it's just fantastic. So congratulations on all your success there. I can't wait to get back there in October. And as I look up at my group, my list of players coming over, we've got another 18 people coming over to play there at Dumbarney in August and October. So yeah, I can't wait. I'm so happy that they're going to get to play there, and I'm eager to get back there myself.
Excellent. Well, for sure, we will look after them.
Yeah,
and make sure they have a good time.
yeah. Well, Clive, thanks again for your so graciously giving us your time. I'll be thinking about you watching Hoy Lake and the pros play there, and hopefully one of these days I'll get to meet with you over there in person at Dumbarney. Last year we were unable to get connected, but next time I'm over there, or one of the next times I'm over there, hopefully we can you can buy me one of those bacon rolls.
And a gin and tonic for Henry Longhurst.
It sounds perfect.
Thank you again for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed Mr. Clive Clark. If you enjoyed it, please like and share, and we will see you next time. Thanks.